Thanks people, time to go back to bank reconciliations, this time focusing on the bank reconciliation statement, the second of the two separate tasks, hence its separate video. We did the general knowledge in the first one. What we're now interested in is task 7. It's the best completed task in the bookkeeping and controls exam, so less likely to cause a problem. If it's not a mathematical error adding and subtracting, it's likely to be an item appearing in there that should really have been updated into the cash book. This is what we're really interested in though, so these are the items that belong in there, primarily down to timing differences. Traditionally checks, not used very often these days, so far less common than it used to be, but checks you write out, put them in the post, they take a few days to get there, then somebody has to walk down to the bank, pay it in, and a couple more days before it clears, so it's not likely to be less than a week. In practice, it could, in theory, it could be up to 6 years, because checks are now valid for up to 6 years. It's a law that changed a few years ago. Most people still think they're for 6 months. Well, a bank is always going to ring you if a check is more than 6 months old, just to check that you want to allow it to be paid. Then there's outstanding lodgement, so the opposite, so that's the proper word for money that we've paid in, we lodge it with the banks, not yet shown on a bank statement. These aren't going to be 6 years old, they're going to be less than a week old. If you pay money in last minute before they close for a holiday or to go off and party, it's not going to show for a few days. Direct debits also cause problems. I haven't seen many of these on the AAT exams or been told about them by students, but actually direct debits, we get the invoice from our supplier, so this wouldn't be normally utilities but a regular trade supplier, and they take the money out a few weeks after we've got the invoice. So I've seen them regularly with somebody I used to deal with on 6 weeks, also other companies on a weekly basis, so they can be simply a timing difference, the same as checks. Then the other items that should appear in the reconciliation statement, bank errors, it's their mistake, don't need to update our cash, but we've got to explain the difference. If we use pay at pump, pay at debit card for some fuel, it's only going to show £1 for a few days, so if that appears in our bank statement, so we bought £25 worth of fuel, pay at pump, we'll need to put £24 in the reconciliation statement because the £1's there to balance off the totals. Then, very unlikely but possible, receipts that are not our money. It'll go out in a few days time, so don't spend it, otherwise you'll end up in prison. And then also less likely to appear in the exam, post-dated checks. Now technically the proper way of dealing with them is to reverse them from the cash book, take them out of the system and put them back in when they're valid, but actually it might be we can just leave it with the bank or represent it a couple of days later when it is valid. Bank reconciliation statements are a permanent record, they're a proper record proving what's actually happened, so if they're kept with the banking records we'll keep them for 10 years, because bank records are kept for 10 years, the 6 years plus end of the financial year, or 7 years as most people state it, applies to things like invoices and credit notes. So on with the actual maths, so the maths should balance off, so you know where you're going with this. Hence the ability to check it and correct it. Well, our bank statement said £98. It said credit. Well, that means it's money in our bank. They talk in their own language, so £98 debit to us, of course. And then we're going to add. So I've already put a couple of the titles in. So cash. It's this one. We haven't coloured it in. It's an uncleared lodgement. Subtotaling, no, there's only one item, and then this one is a check, drop down box in the exam, that's the check there, sitting there, it just hasn't cleared. Well, we wrote it out and posted it on the 28th of May, so no surprise. And then we should be able to add it all off properly, or add and subtract. So if we start off with our bank statement, 90, get the right cell, plus the uncleared lodgements, minus a check, we should get the same balance as on our updated cash book, which proves everything in our cash book we know where it is, just as we've already proven that we know everything in our bank statement is true. So the other one has just got an extra row in it really. Again, these would be drop down boxes, I've just added them in to save time. So our bank statement said 1571. It would be a minus symbol of course if it was overdrawn. Add in the uncleared lodgements. In this case there's 2 of them. So adding up to 427, subtract the check. So the logic is this is how much we know we've really got because we're allowing for our check. And then the same in mathematics, start off with the bank statement plus the total to add, the uncleared lodgements minus the check. And we're back to the correct amount as per our cash book. Some people prefer to do it the other way around, start off with the cash book, in which case it's add and subtract. Either way, the two amounts, you should be able to prove why there's a difference. And that means our reconciliation statement is there, all done.